Tonight, what local groups say is missing from the Premier's poverty reduction plan, and we have these stories.
Workers here at the Harbour Grace shipyard are on edge. Their employer is in big financial trouble.
I got mortgage, I got vehicle payments, I got 2 small children at home, wife, right? There's a lot at stake.
The owners believe they can emerge from creditor protection and save this important marine facility. I'm Terry Roberts, and I'll have that story coming up.
Some dog owners in the city feel walking their pets these days is taking a risk.
It's definitely a big concern, plus then, the trails and stuff.
What their concerns are, I'll have that story tonight.
And police lay dozens of new sexual violence charges in 2 different investigations.
This is CBC Here and Now.
Good evening and welcome to Here and Now. I'm Peter Cowan, and let's get right to our top story. Community groups say the Premier's poverty plan is off to a good start, but they want to see more steps towards a universal basic income. This is after government announced an overhaul of the income support program yesterday and increased child benefits. Here Now's Heather Gillis has more reaction tonight.
Good afternoon, and thank you all.
The Premier opened the door to a universal basic income yesterday during government's unveiling of the poverty reduction plan. A basic income would give people in the province a minimum guaranteed amount of money.
We're really heartened to see policy change, and we think this is a great start towards something much bigger.
Laura Winters is the CEO of Stella's Circle. She says the existing income support system is complicated and convoluted. The amount people get varies depending on age, who you live with, and how many children you have. On average, Winters says most people get $1,000 to $1,100 a month, total for rent, groceries, and bills.
So they do it with a lot of skill and a lot of, wherewithal to try to get by on that amount of money. It is not enough. And I think it's positive that there's changes, but I think there's more work to do as well to really support the most marginalized folks in our community who are experiencing the deepest levels of poverty.
As of August, about 22,000 adults and 7,000 children in the province were on income support, about 5.5% of the population. Winters wants to see their support indexed to inflation. Meanwhile, the province is introducing measures to fight child poverty, which accounts for about 10% of children. Advocate Neria Aylward says when you factor in families with low incomes, the rate is actually higher.
We see rates of poverty as high as 16%.
Aylward says for a family of 4, the poverty line is about $48,000 to $50,000 a year. She wants to see changes to the income thresholds that determine who has access to social programs so that no kid is left behind the poverty line.
We'd like to see that every child lives in dignity, is that their rights are respected and upheld.
Both community groups say the poverty reduction plan is a good start, but they'd both like to see a universal basic income, giving people enough money to get by and to get out of poverty. Heather Gillis, CBC News, St. John's.
The owners of the shipyard in Harbour Grace are pleading for patience from their lenders and continued trust from their customers as they try and avoid bankruptcy. Employees are nervous. Here Now's Terry Roberts has the latest.
There's 56 people on the payroll today at Harbour Grace Ocean Enterprises, where it looks like business as usual. 4 new vessels are under construction. This state-of-the-art fishing vessel is one of them, 90% complete. They're putting the finishing touches on Petton's Legacy, a 24-meter behemoth with a price tag north of $6 million. But these workers are nervous. This yard has fallen on hard times. Cash flow has dried up, and their future has never been more uncertain.
It was uneasy. I mean, we come to work, everyone here puts in an honest day's work, but it's kind of difficult when you don't really know if there's enough type thing. If this place closes, if there's nothing available right away, I got mortgage, I got vehicle payments, I got 2 small children at home, wife, right? There's a lot at stake.
Harbour Grace Ocean Enterprises is a big business around here. Annual payroll of nearly $5 million. Millions more in purchases from local suppliers. Dozens of families who depend on it. And a marine industry throughout Atlantic Canada and parts of Quebec that has come to trust this place for quality work. But the owners are facing a tough reality. Not enough money to meet payroll or chip away at their $16 million in debt.
If we're in this position, it's because we had a tough year.
They're keeping creditors at bay with a court order, and majority owner Kevin English is putting up money to keep the operation going for the next 3 months. The search is on for some new investors, maybe even a new owner.
Priority number one is to save the jobs here in the yard for the 56 people and 56 families that are here, and to keep contributing to the local economy.
It's also white-knuckle times for customers. Matthew Petton wants to get his new vessel in the water. The last thing he needs is for the banks or other creditors to put the locks on the place.
He's very nervous, and he's extremely good with us. So, again, we need the banks to stick with us.
So what went wrong? For one, the shipyard lost millions on an aquaculture barge contract. The cost of materials have skyrocketed. Shipment delays have led to production bottlenecks. And this year's crab harvest, usually a cash cow for the yard, was hobbled by controversy, delays, and a collapse in wharf prices. A perfect storm. But these people are not giving up.
The last 3 years, with these factors that have complicated things, our cash flow disappearing, we couldn't answer the call. So we get back on our feet, we can carry that debt and move forward.
One of the big questions, are customers lining up to do future business with this shipyard? Well, the message here today is that if they can survive this latest challenge, it can once again be smooth sailing for Harbour Grace Ocean Enterprises. Terry Roberts, CBC News, Harbour Grace.
The RNC has laid more sexual violence charges in 2 unrelated cases today. First, against a pair of men already accused of dozens of sex crimes involving minors. 62-year-old Anthony Humber and 81-year-old Bruce Escott are now facing 7 more charges between them, including sexual interference and sexual exploitation. Police say the new charges involve a new alleged victim, raising the total number of alleged victims to 11. The 2 men lived near each other at the Anne Jeanette Trailer Park in St. John's. Sources told CBC News this spring that the men were known to take in vulnerable youth who often had nowhere else to go. Police have also laid 29 more charges against 32-year-old Marcus Hicks of Paradise. He's accused of using fake social media accounts to lure victims, some of whom are minors. Hicks, who worked as a volleyball coach and substitute teacher, was arrested in early September. Since then, more people have come forward and police have laid more charges. Thursday's charges bring the total up to 92, including 14 alleged victims. The new charges include sexual assault, kidnapping, luring a child, making sexually explicit material available to a child, and breach of trust. Some dog owners in St. John's are worried about walking their pets in parts of the city after dangerous discoveries popped up on social media. Here now's Enrique Wilhelm explains.
It started here in September. People found poisoned hot dogs on the trail. Now social media posts say the same deadly treat has turned up here, and they have some residents worried about their pets.
It makes me not want to walk my dog in my neighborhood, but at the same time, I don't want to be afraid to walk my dog in my neighborhood.
A justified fear, says a local veterinarian. Poisoning, whether intentional or accidental, can be lethal, is hard to spot, and quick treatment is essential.
With any poison, the sooner you get it out of their system, the more successful you're going to be.
According to the city, staff haven't found any poisoned food, but will continue to monitor the area. The RNC received 5 reports of meat found in random places between September 21st and October 7th, 4 of them in the Airport Heights area. While the RNC is monitoring the situation, they say they can't confirm whether it's criminal activity or just wildlife picking up traps meant for rodents and bringing them to places like this. Meanwhile, Brown Burry says incidents of poisoning are less common than people might think.
When I worked in the emergency clinic full time, we probably saw at least 1 or 2 a week. Most of the time it was the dog getting into something in the home. Chocolate being a common one. The owner's medication or the other pet's medication would also be common. Rat poison has thankfully become much less common. 15 years ago when I first was working in St. John's, we saw it a lot more often because people were using it more.
Regardless of intent, some residents want the city to bring in more safety measures.
Trail cams maybe around some of the trails, trying to catch what people are doing. It's, it's unfortunate that that's where we're at with it, but if it's 3 or 4 instances of it now, and it seems like it's a repeat problem, then maybe that would be a solution.
That's something the city says it's not planning for now. Meanwhile, Shadora says she will walk her dog in other areas and possibly use a muzzle to stop him from picking up things he shouldn't. Enrique Wilhelm, CBC News, St. John's.
Time for a check of your weather forecast. Ryan Snodden here with you in the Weather Center in Halifax for Ashley tonight. And yeah, let's start with the warnings. Obviously, the wind has been the story today across the island and will continue to be the story tonight, with those winds gusting upwards of 80-90 kilometers per hour, especially Bonavista Peninsula, Bonavista North into the Bay of Exploits. That's our best chance of hitting that warning criteria wind, and special weather statements all along that north coast thanks to the pounding waves, especially this evening with higher than normal water levels. The rain mixed with snow could see traced to as much as 5 centimeters overnight in central, with the winds that will continue and then easing as we work our way into Friday. And so we'll have a quiet stretch for a time, and then another trough coming in from the west means more wet snow rolling in for tomorrow, especially across the island into southeastern Labrador. And then this will all slowly but surely taper off throughout Saturday and into Sunday. Your full weather forecast is coming up in just a few minutes. Peter?
Thanks, Ryan. Some new airline routes are coming to Newfoundland next summer, with Flair announcing today that they're expanding service in this province. Starting in May, Flair will fly from Toronto and Kitchener-Waterloo into St. John's. The flights will be 3 to 4 times a week. There will also be a flight from Toronto to Deer Lake, in addition to the Waterloo to Deer Lake flight that's been running the last 2 summers. The announcement came in St. John's today. It's offering fares as little as $110 round trip to Waterloo and $150 round trip to Toronto as part of an introductory promotion. For the St. John's to Toronto flight, they're up against 4 other airlines that currently serve that route.
We just play our own game. You know, we know the competition is there, but our main advantage is that we have a low-cost base. You know, we're an efficient airline with low costs and therefore can offer lower fares and survive at lower fares. And so everyone else will play their own game, but we think there's a market here that deserves lower fares and that we will stimulate market by having lower fares.
A Dockside monitor on Newfoundland's west coast is accused of taking bribes in crab and falsifying catch records. Scott Fortune was working as a DFO official at the time of the alleged offences. Elizabeth Whitten reports.
Scott Fortune of St. David's is facing a number of charges, including 5 criminal counts. 2 counts of defrauding the government, 1 breach of trust by a public officer, and 2 related to forged or falsified documents.
According to documents obtained by CBC News, Fortune is alleged to have accepted pans of crab from fishermen in exchange for not writing down the exact amount of crab they harvested. At the time, Fortune was working as an official for DFO, hired through a third party. There are also 3 charges under the Fisheries Act. These relate to making false statements to fisheries officials, producing false records, and unlawfully possessing or selling fish. Court filings allege while Fortune was working as a dockside monitor, he made a false or misleading statement to a fishery officer near Little Port Harmon and gave the fishery officer records that contained false or misleading information. Fortune is also accused of possessing illegally caught snow crab.
None of these allegations have been proven in court. CBC News reached out to Fortune's legal counsel but did not hear back. He is due back in court in Stephenville on November 20th. Elizabeth Whitten, CBC News, St. John's.
In an email, DFO says it revoked Fortune's Dockside Monitoring Program designation and has shared its information with the RCMP. Well, the town of Musgrave Harbor is now getting some help with its finances. The province has hired a new comptroller to help correct some of the irregularities found during an inspection of the town's books this past summer. That inspection uncovered, among other things, unauthorized reimbursement of invoices, cash that wasn't able to be reconciled, and invoices not recorded. No one from Municipal Affairs or the town would do an interview. Well, she's only in grade 6, but she's leading the St. John's Fire Department, at least for the day. Rachel Robotham of Mount Pearl won the St. John's Regional Fire Department's annual Fire Chief for a Day competition in a poster contest for Fire Prevention Week. And here's how it went.
You'll be my boss for today? Awesome. Excellent. All right. Seatbelt on, that's important.
Well, I'm going to be a fire chief today, and because I won a poster contest, we had to have like fire safety tips for like cooking, and then I decorated it and I colored it, and then my teacher passed it in.
We're all really proud of her, and we're going to enjoy the day too. We were able to get the day off from work. Family is the most important thing, so you try to make those priorities, and we're going to ride in the fire truck. I came here in the fire truck, and my wife is going to swap out later, and she'll get the ride for a bit, and we're going to enjoy the day too, with our new fire chief for the day.
And so what do you think it takes to be a fire chief and lead the fire department for the day?
You have to be very brave and help people.
Yeah, are you ready to help people?
Yeah.
Are you nervous at all?
A little bit.
And what do you think your favorite part about being in a fire truck is?
The sirens.
Remembrance Day will look a little different in St. John's this year, with the National War Memorial undergoing a major restoration.
This is the first time in 99 years where we will not be able to hold our Remembrance Day ceremonies from our National War Memorial.
You're doing such a project that's going to be known right across Canada. It shows the respect that I have for my forefathers.
I'm Terry Roberts, and we'll have more on Remembrance and the Tomb of the Unknowns on Here and Now.
The windy, messy weather continues across the island tonight with another wave of snow mixed with rain tracking in through Friday. A little quieter in Labrador. We'll break down your full weather forecast coming up in a few minutes.
crippling grocery bills, unaffordable rent, gas tanks that are always half empty. We're in a cost of living crisis, and it's taking a toll on families, students, and average earners. Join us for a new series as we meet people in this province juggling multiple jobs to make ends meet, burning long hours just to cover the basics. The Grind airs Mondays on Here and Now.
Time for a check of your full weather forecast. Ryan Snodden here in for Ashley tonight. And yeah, let's start with the highs today. We did squeak up into the 5-6 degree range. Bonavista Vista, St. John's, down towards Argentian, St. Lawrence, the Burin Peninsula. It's warm as 7 today, but with that wind, it didn't feel much like that, did it? Yeah, obviously temperatures much cooler in Labrador. Highs -4 to -5. Nain to Labrador City, and yeah, the wind has obviously been the big story and will continue to be the story tonight across the island with those wind warnings in effect, especially for those exposed coastal areas, right? Bonavista Vista Peninsula, Bonavista Vista North, Twillingate, Bay of Exploits, all under a wind warning, and then the special weather statement for those pounding waves this evening. Yeah, wave watching won't be pleasant in that wind anyway, but boy, if you are close to the coast, be awfully careful with this northerly wind. And again, you can see we've been seeing these bands of rain mixed with snow at times wrapping in from the north around this low, which is going to continue to slowly depart out to the east. Area of high pressure settling in over Labrador, and what we're going to be seeing is, as we move over the next 24 hours, while that low does continue to work off to the east, we've got another low rolling through Ontario right now, and that, while that low is weakening, we will see the trough kind of swinging in and adding a little punch of moisture yet again for later tomorrow into tomorrow night, with the possibility of more accumulating snow. Let's play it all out, time it out for you. So here's the low departing, right? There's that snow tonight. Central parts of the island could pick up as much as 2 to 5 centimeters from that. Gander back towards Grand Falls, Windsor, into the Green Bay, White Bay area, and up towards the Northern Peninsula. All the possibility of some accumulating snow this evening into the overnight. By the time we get to tomorrow morning, that chance really starts to taper off, though some lingering flurries even up into the Mary's Harbor region. But the influence of that low having less and less influence as we move into tomorrow morning. Then into the afternoon, there comes that trough, and again, adding a little extra juice to the mix here. And with that, we'll see, yes, the possibility of more snow developing. Corner Brook, Deer Lake, up into the Northern Peninsula region, and then tomorrow afternoon into tomorrow evening, stretching into central parts of the island as well. This, on its own, another 2 to 5 centimeters possible of accumulation here, and that includes up into the southeastern parts of Labrador as well. So tonight's temperatures will dip as chilly as -8 Labrador City. Most of the rest of us kind of sitting in and around the freezing mark, less or minus a couple of degrees. You can see -7 in Nain as well. -4 in Nain tomorrow, -3 in Labrador City, but relatively quiet here. It's when that, again, that next trough coming in will be kicking up that snowfall into the afternoon. Note the northwest winds gusting near 70 tomorrow, so not nearly as strong as tonight, but certainly having an influence again for tomorrow, that northerly wind. Now, pausing it for your snowfall outlook overnight tonight, trace to as much as 5 centimeters here again and through the northern parts of the island, and then that secondary wave comes in tomorrow, and that's where we start to see some accumulating snow possibilities again, Northern Peninsula and the West Coast, and then into central tomorrow night in through Saturday morning. And so, yeah, over the next 36 hours or so, we're looking at that possibility of about 5 to 10 centimeters of snow, and maybe even 10 plus, especially higher terrain areas of the Long Range Mountains and up into the Green Bay, White Bay area. So definitely be mindful of that. As we move through Saturday, you can see the influence of this system will slowly weaken, but it is going to be no doubt unsettled as we work our way throughout the day on Saturday. Keeping this in mind for, of course, the many Remembrance Day ceremonies. It's going to be breezy in from the northwest as well. And so, yes, 2-3 degrees. It's definitely dress for the elements for Remembrance Day if you're heading out for those ceremonies. Some wet weather and some breezy weather as well. that low will continue to weaken, and so we will see lingering showers and flurries across the east on Sunday, but some drier air working its way in for Monday into Tuesday. Similar story for Central for Saturday, but again, note Sunday drier and a quieter stretch to next week, thankfully. Similar story for the West Coast, some lingering flurry chances Sunday and into Monday with those skies brightening into early next week. Similar story for Happy Valley Goose Bay and eastern parts of Labrador, where we'll start to dry out for Sunday and into next week. And yeah, for Labrador City, pretty pleasant Remembrance Day there with a chance of flurries moving back in for Tuesday. That is your forecast. And now, Peter, back to you.
Thanks so much, Ryan, for joining us tonight. Well, it's the return of the fallen, and it's shaping up to be a historic event for Newfoundland and Labrador. The province is preparing to bring home an unknown soldier who died in the northern fields of France in the First World War. And because of all the preparations, Remembrance Day will look a little different this year in St. John's. Terry Roberts explains.
For 99 years, the focal point of remembrance in St. John's, the Newfoundland National War Memorial, unveiled in 1924 before a crowd of thousands, when Newfoundland was a self-governing dominion, a quarter century before joining Canada. Sacred ground, lifelike bronze statues, honoring the sacrifice and courage of those who served, and those who died in large numbers at places like Beaumont-Hamel in northern France, where the 800-strong Royal Newfoundland Regiment was decimated on July 1st, 1916. But this Remembrance Day, the memorial is a construction site. A $6 million makeover is underway.
That is going to be a monumental change to the site, one that we've been looking for some time.
Renovating a century-old National Historic Site is a delicate job to preserve the artistic integrity and reverence of the memorial. At the same time, add something new. And it's something that begins far from here. Hundreds of soldiers from the Newfoundland Regiment are buried in northern France, many with no known grave. One of those soldiers will be exhumed, and after all this while, he'll come home, here to St. John's, and laid to rest in a new tomb of the unknowns at the base of the memorial. This somber homecoming will take place on July 1st, 2024, on the 100th anniversary of the first Memorial Day here so long ago.
It's going to be a very significant day.
This is the man building the tomb, just 30 years old, owner of a stone fabrication company and quarry of rare granite in central Newfoundland. The great-grandson of a man who fought in both world wars and has no known grave because he was lost at sea after his ship was torpedoed.
This is the remains of a soldier that might have fought alongside of my great-grandfather.
Few have seen the tomb. There's months of work still to do. Engravings, details, final touches.
All we know is that the vault is made from this material. It's called black gabbro. Very rare, only found right here.
So this was a rock that was a potential piece for the tomb.
Here's a sketch. The vault made from the gabbro in Bishop's Falls. The cover is Labradorite, making the tomb rooted in the soil of this province. Mark Brace is humbled to be part of it.
It's just like taking home Stanley Cup, I think.
Meanwhile, while the work and waiting is underway for the return of an unknown soldier, this war memorial in the heart of Old St. John's is back to its original purpose.
We are kind of going back in history, so I think it's a nice thing, and this is a beautiful historic war memorial.
This year, the Warrant Officer and Sergeant's Memorial on Queen Street will be the site of the main remembrance ceremony on November 11th, the first time in 99 years. Terry Roberts, CBC News, St. John's.
I regret to say I have also received death threats.
Messages of violence, death threats for the MP for Avalon, says the Conservatives are to blame following a tense vote this week on the carbon tax. More from Ken McDonald coming up ahead. Well, Flair Airlines today announced more routes in and out of Newfoundland, adding flights from St. John's to Toronto and Kitchener-Waterloo, and a flight from Deer Lake to Toronto. So what does this mean for the flying public? Well, the president of Flair Airlines, Stephen Jones, is here. Thanks for joining me.
Pleasure. Nice to meet you.
So there's already 4 airlines that are flying between Toronto and St. John's. Why did you want to be the 5th?
Because we think the people of St. John's deserve more access to affordable travel. So the Canadian market has historically really been featured by very expensive airfares. Flair's role is to bring affordable airfares to all Canadians, and that includes the people of St. John's.
So you're flying from Waterloo to St. John's. That's a route that we haven't seen before, and it's only an hour away from Toronto. So why have these 2 destinations that are so close together?
So we see them as quite different catchment areas. You know, there's more than 500,000 people in the in the Kitchener-Waterloo region, as well as obviously a massive catchment in the Toronto area. There's also a lot of people from Newfoundland and from St. John's in the Kitchener-Waterloo region. And so we wanted to build a direct connection so they didn't need to go through another airport on the way. And then, so that's the direct connection from Kitchener-Waterloo. And then Toronto, obviously massive catchment area, very well connected airport, and so wanted to bring more service there as well.
How do you decide where to add service to? Because I know, for example, Newfoundland and Labrador has been really trying to attract more air carriers like yourself. What goes behind deciding where to add those routes?
Sure, there's kind of 3 things that we try to bring together. The first is we want to fly where people want to fly. And so we look at what the traffic flows are, because people will make their way from spot A to spot B one way or another. Some of them might have to drive or take trains or, fly indirect routes. So is there a traffic flow, number one? What is the cost of doing that? And so whether that's the length of the flight, whether it's the airport costs, so that's the second part. And the third is really the efficiency of it. How does it fit into the balance of our network, and can we do that profitably? So those things come together, and I think St. John's ticks all the boxes here.
One of the things with St. John's is the airport fees here, the passenger fees, are one of the highest in the country. How big of a factor is that for you, or how big of a deterrent when you're trying to decide on routes and keep those costs down?
Yeah, so it's a significant factor, there's no doubt. And we've now come to a really great partnership with the local airport. So they're keen to incentivize new carriers on new routes, which is not an abnormal thing for airports to do. And so we've come to good agreement on that, and we're happy with where we sit now.
The province is also looking to increase air access. What could the province be doing to make itself more attractive for airlines like yourself to add new routes into?
So clearly reducing costs is a big deal, and providing support in the way of whether that's co-marketing, so when we enter a new route, we have to market that route and have to let people know that it's available. So working together on marketing the destination, just generally sort of helping people become aware of the route is a big part of it. So, and just the general support, the relationship that we have. There are some communities that really sort of couldn't care less, and there are some that care deeply, and this is one of those that cares deeply.
One of the questions, and you heard it a little bit earlier, is about restoring access between here and Europe. Your planes could fly between here and Heathrow. It's actually closer than here to Calgary. Do you have any interest in becoming, an international low-cost carrier and being able to restore some of those connections?
So I think being successful as a low-cost carrier really means being focused on what you do well. And so are we a great transatlantic carrier? No, we're not. So we won't be doing that. We're really focused on the Canadian market and taking Canadians where they want to go in Canada, in the US, Mexico, and the Caribbean. That's our lot.
Okay, well, thank you very much and good luck.
Great pleasure.
A clarification now to a story we brought you earlier this week about ITK warning organizations not to recognize Nunatuavut as an Indigenous group. In that story, we said the federal government has agreed to negotiate a land claim with Nunatuavut, while Ottawa has signed a memo recognizing Nunatuavut's members as an Indigenous collective capable of holding Indigenous rights. They have not accepted a land claim for negotiation from the group. To Ottawa now, where the finger-wagging continues in the House of Commons. Liberal MP Ken McDonald says he's been getting death threats following an incident earlier this week.
I have received threats of violence. I've had people threaten to cause violence at my constituency office, and I regret to say I have also received death threats.
The MP for Avalon came under fire for allegedly giving Conservatives the middle finger. It happened during a vote on the carbon tax on Monday. McDonald asserts he was just scratching his head, but Conservatives pushed back. McDonald says the PCs shared the moment on social media and misrepresented it to incite outrage. He previously broke ranks by voting against the carbon tax multiple times, going against his own party. On Monday, McDonald faced jeers from the opposition, who called him a flip-flopper. Here's how it all played out on the floor of the House of Commons.
Remember that Canadians are watching us and that we are all accountable for our words and actions in this place.
Members of the official opposition used footage of my vote and posted it on social media, encouraging people to email and call my parliamentary and constituency offices. Speaker, in the last 48 hours, I have received threats of violence. I've had people threaten to cause violence at my constituency office, and I regret to say I have also received death threats. Speaker, this is not okay. My staff are scared, members of my family are scared, and this is all because the opposition misled this House and misled Canadians because they were unhappy with the way I voted on their motion. I was elected to this place to represent the people of Avalon. On 2 separate occasions, I've stood in this chamber and voted in support of Conservative opposition motions on carbon taxes because I believed it was the right thing to do for my constituents. Monday's Opposition Day motion didn't reflect the needs of my constituents, so I voted against it. I will continue to stand up for what's best for the people in my riding. Speaker, I ask that the member for South Surrey White Rock take responsibility for her actions, apologise and recognise that this misleading accusation fuelled hate and threats of violence against my staff and myself.
You know, we all face threats being public servants and being in the public eye in this House, including myself and including many of my colleagues, for a variety of reasons. The ruling here was not that the member did not do what I stated I saw him do, and others here stated that they saw him do. The ruling was that it was inconclusive.
They know what the honourable member did. They can see the obvious gestures. So you've said that you're not in a position to take one member's word over another. Fine. It's now on social media. It lives on there, and Canadians, especially the members, the voters in Avalon, can make their own determination whether or not they think it's appropriate when people are struggling with their home heating bills to get the finger from a member who is voting against our common sense motion.
Battle Harbour, Labrador is a world-class tourist destination. Land and Sea was there when the work began. Watch this archival special Sunday at 11:30 and Monday at 7.
A new report has found DFO is doing a poor job of monitoring the fishery, and lax controls could lead to overfishing. What's more, the report found DFO knew about the problems but didn't fix them. One of the report's authors spoke with CBC Radio's The Broadcast about the findings. Here's part of that conversation.
David, you guys began your report. In your introduction, you referenced the collapse of the northern cod stock. Why did you do that? That was a big momentous event.
Yes, and obviously we did not focus our audit on this particular stock, but we need to bear in mind that it's much easier to manage the harvesting tightly of these fish stocks, not only for the economy, because they're an important part of the economy. There are 72,000 people that live out of the fisheries industry. It's an industry of $4.6 billion. But as well, it's important to protect the resource for use by all Canadians for now and future generations. So cod is an example where there was overfishing at some point. And nowadays, our report is actually about collecting catch data to make sure there isn't overfishing. So it's important to protect the resource and not repeat some, I would say, mistakes of the past. And take the measures take the appropriate measures to protect the harvesting, and this is done via quotas usually.
Okay, well, David, why don't we just get into some of the inadequacies you came across? Give me an example or two of what you found that would give you some rise for concern.
Well, for the catch data to be dependable, in the first place, you need to have the right requirements for monitoring in place, and then you have to conduct and deliver fully on the monitoring programs that you put in place. So what we found is that in response to a recommendation we had made back in 2016 in our audit, the Fisheries and Oceans Canada had committed to develop a policy to improve the monitoring and determine whether the catch data is dependable and fix the problems wherever there's a problem to be fixed. And actually, we found that after putting in place the policy in 2019, the department did not allocate the resources that it took to actually put it, to implement it, and has not done much progress implementing it. We have a graphic in our report, Exhibit 9.2, that shows that 2 stocks out of the 156 that are subject to this made it to step 2 of the process. So this means that no fish stocks went through the entire process.
When Rohit Sani immigrated to St. John's, he saw traditional Diwali celebrations at the Hindu temple and at Memorial University, but he says there was no party. This Saturday, the night before Diwali, Sani is throwing a Bollywood night event at a club on George Street. He broke it all down to the CBC's Ife Alba.
So what we are doing different is we are modernizing Diwali. When I was here last year, people celebrated in the university conference halls and in temples and in the Sikh temples, but it was never been modernized before. What I'm trying to do is modernizing the Diwali so that everybody comes here and they get a vibe of a modern night at club, but keeping in mind that it's a Diwali occasion. So they're gonna do their folk dance, traditional dances, they're gonna celebrate the traditional way, but in a modern culture. Hi, my name's Rohit Sani, and I'm organizing this Diwali event this year. It's happening at TJ's Pub in downtown George Street, and it's happening on 11th of November, starting from 9 p.m. and going all the way to the end of the night.
Tell us about who you are and why you decided to do this.
I'm an insurance advisor here in St. John's. I've been here from last 2 years, and I've been growing my business over here. The reason I'm doing it because when I came to St. John's, Newfoundland, I have seen there's not a lot of people from India and Bangladesh and Pakistan. But nowadays, as the population is growing and people are more coming to St. John's, I've seen that there's a need for us to get together and unite. All people who celebrate Diwali, most people from those countries immigrated here. So I'm trying to bring that environment here so they get to celebrate.
So Diwali is the festival of light, and the weather is horrible right now.
It is crazy.
Are you going to be able to bring all that positivity and light into TJ's where you're having the event?
So I did my best, and what I'm trying here to do is light up the whole area where we're going to celebrate it. Also, I'm planning to do some kind of signage or posters that will show them the meaning of Diwali, so that people from other communities, they know why we celebrate Diwali and they're gonna see how we celebrate it. I am excited, I hope you are excited as well, and I hope people show up. I don't want anybody to miss out, and I want people to know more about our culture, that how we celebrate Diwali. So I want everybody to come out and celebrate with us.
Police in Montreal are investigating after shots were fired at 2 Jewish schools overnight. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau condemned any acts of anti-Semitism, and Quebec's Premier François Legault says such incidents cannot be tolerated. Staff members discovered the bullet holes on the exterior of the building this morning when they arrived. Police say nobody was inside at the time of the shootings, but it's still unclear when the shots were fired, and they can't confirm the 2 incidents are linked. This is the 85th anniversary of Kristallnacht, the Night of Broken Glass. On November 9th, 1938, Nazis went on a late-night rampage, mainly in Germany, killing more than 90 Jews and vandalizing Jewish homes and businesses. Synagogues were burned down and more than 30,000 Jews were arrested. Germany's chancellor led a commemoration today at a Berlin synagogue. He addressed leaders of the Jewish community. He said he's alarmed at the rise of anti-Semitism since the start of the Israel-Hamas war, both in Germany and around the world. And he said, quote, "We will not tolerate it."
I want them to know that we did our part.
They did their part, and now they're stepping out of the shadows. A lifetime ago, they served in the Second World War. We'll hear their story just ahead. Earlier in the show, we told you about an unknown tomb. Now to a story about some unknown war heroes who sacrificed for Canada and who are finally stepping into the spotlight. I'm talking about women who served during the Second World War. The CBC's Ashley Burke brings you some of their stories.
Just like a movie set.
Oh, yeah.
Lucille Lane's 101.
1, 2, 3, 4.
And she's never been in the spotlight like this before.
My goodness, this is professional.
A lifetime after serving in the war, it's only in recent years she's begun publicly sharing her experiences.
I want them to know that we did our part.
I was 19. 19, wow. The same goes for 100-year-old Betty Phipps.
Do you think women received the credit they deserve for what they did in the Second World War?
No, I don't think so.
Am I a rose between two thorns? Yes, absolutely.
When the Second World War required all hands on deck, women took supporting roles in the Army, Navy, and Air Force. Their stories have been far less documented. But filmmaker Eric Brunt wants to change that, recording them while there's still time.
As we get to the stage where there's sadly going to be no Second World War veterans left, the female veterans are realizing that it's now more than ever that they should share their story.
You wore on your sleeve, and that said I was a coder.
Their work was crucial. Lane decoded top secret messages sent from ships in the North Atlantic.
Loose lips sink ships.
Betty Bell worked in London, keeping records for the Royal Canadian Air Force, not without danger. She recalls the constant fear of flying bombs known as doodle bugs.
And these things would come flying over, and you'd have to watch them, because once their engine stopped, they would just go zoom, like that. And they had a huge, a detonation.
And I'd known what a rocket was like, because we had one that killed a couple of our girls, and it was very close to me.
Phipps was in London too, tracking incoming German planes for the British.
Well, we were very important, because if we didn't follow the radar, then they wouldn't have been able to shoot the plane down.
These three women and countless others working to win the war.
This was me at 18, with a fat face. It's cute, eh?
They may joke now, but all these years later, there's a new mission: to show Canadians the valor of their grandmothers and great-grandmothers. Ashley Burke, CBC News, Ottawa.
I was in the...
What a great story there, looking at some of the people who contributed. And of course, it will be a busy day this Saturday for Remembrance Day, as lots of people come out to mark and recognize the sacrifice. Unfortunately, the weather forecast isn't looking great. We're going to keep an eye on that, and we'll bring you an updated forecast for tomorrow night. But I actually have to run because I'm going to be singing in a Remembrance Day concert tonight at the Rooms here in St. John's, something I do as part of Newman Sound. So lots of different ways that people are remembering as we head into Remembrance Day. And that's it for us on Here and Now tonight. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good evening.